Airsoft for sponsoring this channel, Lancer Tactical for sending us the gear for the review, and all the members of the C-Suite on Patreon. Your support is very much appreciated.
Hey there, mercenaries. Quarterly focus group results are in. Profits are way up. You guys weren't a fan of that last cyberware update, and AKs are so hot right now. You ask, the company delivers. You need a low price AK AEG, we bring you the Lancer Tactical AK-103. Makes so much sense it rhymes. The real AK-103 is part of the AK-100 series, which was a line of Kalashnikov rifles released in the 1990s. Primarily intended for export, the AK-100s did away with the traditional wooden furniture in favor of lightweight polymer. They boasted part compatibility with the AK-74, which was and still is, in the dystopian future, one of the most prolific rifle platforms around. The AK-103 was a full-length rifle variant chambered in 7.62 by 39mm.
Time for a corporate-approved gun tip.
You're in the dead sector, scavenging equipment off of your fallen enemies. You come across an AK, but you need to know what the chambering is on that AK. Well, a fast way to determine that is based on the curvature of the magazine, very similar to myself before my augmentation. A 7.62 by 39mm magazine has a much more pronounced curve, as opposed to a 5.45 magazine, which is not nearly as curved. Now get back to work! As you know, we're broadcasting to you from the year of our Lord 2135, but back in the 2020s, there was a legendary warrior by the name of Grand Thumb, and when he would review a rifle, he would go tip to butt. In keeping with that tradition, that's what we're going to do today. So up at the front, you have your plastic AK flash hider with a pinned-in-place high-vis orange tip. This is over 14mm negative thread, so if you can manage to take this off, you can put your tracer units and all that stuff on there. AK front sight with an adjustable post. Both your front sight and your gas assembly back here are made of plastic, but your outer barrel and your little cleaning rod down here are both made of metal, as well as your front sling point right there. Accurate two-piece polymer handguard. Up top here, you have a standard adjustable AK sight. I found that the 4th setting was most accurate for what this gun is capable of. Metal charging handle, spring loaded. Pull that back to reveal a standard AK hop-up unit. Push that arm forward toward the tip of the barrel to reduce hop, and push back toward the stock to increase it. AK safety lever, middle position is fun mode, and bottom is semi-auto. Metal mag release lever, push forward on that to release your magazine. Clip it back into place, magazine's holder position with a little bit of wobble. This gun does come with an accurate 7.62 by 39mm magazine. You've got the Kalashnikov K there on the bottom of it, as well as a 7.62 chambering mark. On the left-hand side of the receiver is your AK accessory mount, there if you want to use an optic mount of some kind. You've got a metal top cover and a polymer lower receiver. Yes, indeed, this is an AK with a polymer lower. That is going to set some people off, but as we'll talk about in a little bit, there's positives and negatives to this gun having a polymer lower receiver. Take off your top cover. I'm going to press this button here on the back of the receiver. It slides right off. This gun, like many other AKs, is intended for use with stick-type batteries. What I found is that AKs will actually work best with these round profile batteries. As you can see, there's a little hole here at the front. You can slide the long part of the battery in there, and that gives you a little more space for cable management. To collapse your stock, press this little button back here. That'll release the hinge, and that stock clips into place on a metal tooth at the front of the receiver. So you can fire this like a member of the cyber cartel if you so desire. There's a button right here. Press that, that'll release that tooth, and the stock clips into place on the back of the receiver. Cool thing about carrying this thing collapsed, with your stock folded in, you've got a sling point here and a sling point here. So your sling just makes a loop when you have it collapsed, but if you release it, the sling will run taut against the length of the rifle, so it'll stay out of your way when you're moving and shooting. This gun does have a lot of plastic on it, but it is pretty well built. I always do the shake test. There's a lot of BBs rattling around there. Pretty much the only movement that I have on this is your cleaning rod up here at the front. It's a little bit loose, and your top cover, which is naturally going to be a little bit loose as well. Aside from that, the receiver holds together very nicely, as well as your barrel assembly. Not a whole lot of movement up there. The other thing that's pretty impressive is that stock. For a folding stock, it's very sturdy, and it's actually one of my favorite parts of this gun. Getting a cheek weld with it is very fast. Even when you have face protection on, that stock is low enough so that you can still get a good sight profile when you are aiming with it. Generally, this gun does look very nice. There is a little bit of mismatched finish. Obviously, you have a polymer lower that doesn't have the same finish as your metal top cover. So if that's something that's important to you, that's something to note. I do think that this gun presents it very well. It did get some compliments while I was out there on the field, which, you know, if there's anything Reach loves, it's showing up other mercenaries with cool gear at the field. And now is a great time to mention our channel sponsor, Norwest Airsoft. Like, I know we got a lot of suits watching the channel here, but if you're an interlink mercenary, you want hardware that's gonna perform as well as you do out there on the field. So if you're looking for custom work, check out Norwest Airsoft. Mike over there does fantastic work. So I did quite a bit of field testing with this. I took this to an airsoft game and played with it for a full 6 hours. And I also did some closed field testing with it over at Installation 42. Over at the installation, I tested this at 25 feet, 50 feet, and 100 feet.
Untitled Tactical AK-103 at 25 feet, about. Semi with 0.20 gram BBs.
At 25 feet, I'm using a man-sized silhouette along with clay pigeons for a more precision target. So at 25 feet, pretty much any airsoft gun is going to be able to hit a target with relative accuracy. But I was able to nail that clay pigeon as well. And that's one thing that I will compliment this gun on, is that it's very accurate. It seems that the bore quality on the barrel is pretty decent because I'm not having a ton of variation in the accuracy department.
Doubled the distance to about 50 feet, and I'm going to use the improper 545 magazines. Nope, hit it.
When we bump out to 50 feet, that's where you start to see more variability. And one of my big critiques of this gun is there's a little bit of inconsistency with the hop up that I experienced.
Okay, so I'm making contact with the paper. I've made some contact with the orange. I am having a little bit of inconsistency with it where some BBs are dropping down, but generally it is pretty straight.
At 50 feet, I'm able to reliably hit that silhouette. I'd say probably like 9 out of 10 of my shots are hitting, but yeah, there is a little bit of weirdness that I was experiencing, and that wasn't just because of the wind.
All right, now we're out at about 100, I'd say maybe 90 to 100 feet. This gun is capable of hitting that. We switched directions so that the wind is actually at my back. I think that might have been why we were seeing some inconsistency. Again, we're using 0.20 gram BBs with this, which tend to deviate a lot more than a heavier weight. Let's see what we got. With an 11.1, this thing kind of rips. That's sick. Yes, dude!
Really, the practical accuracy for this gun, I would say, is right around 120 feet. I was able to engage targets a little bit past that on the airsoft field, right around the 150 foot mark. But I think that is the absolute tail end of accuracy of range for this gun. That's the thing that's kind of strange about this AEG, is at least while I was testing it, the accuracy was spot on, but it really lacks range. I would expect to be able to get targets a little bit past that 150 foot mark for a stock AEG. But I at least want to be able to put pressure consistently on enemies out there. What's most important is that I was able to consistently hit a man-sized silhouette, which is going to be my benchmark for an AEG like this. The 103 was able to keep up with what I was giving it. There were certain points where I'm maneuvering around an enemy and I need to keep that enemy suppressed with sustained semi-automatic fire, just hammering that trigger over and over and over again just to keep fire on the enemy so that they can't move. The other thing I was pleasantly surprised about has to do with the polymer receiver. A real AK would be either milled or stamped steel. A polymer receiver kind of, I guess, hurts the realism of that a little bit. The thing I was surprised by was how easy this thing was to use when I was tired. Indeed, you save a ton of weight by using a polymer receiver. The gun is pretty sturdy. It's got decent weight so that I'm able to actually treat it like a gun. It's easier to run with when I was low on stamina. And generally, it's just a more maneuverable platform. My biggest concern with a gun with a polymer receiver would be long-term durability. But the AK-103, it held up to some damage. It was dropped from table height on the field. It also took some direct hits from BBs at very close range. I've got one or two here on the front end and also one here on the fore end of the receiver. On the field, I was bracing it against barriers. I went prone with it on concrete. I put it through its paces the way that I would expect an airsoft gun that I would use on the field to perform. The Lancer Tactical AK-103, an affordable AK that's fun to use, but is it corporate approved? Well, let me say this. I had a lot of fun using this thing on the field. This one was easy to pick up and get going with. It did what I needed it to do. It was easy to maneuver with on the field from close range to those medium ranges, was able to engage targets and put down plenty of enemies out there on the field. It handles well and has a lot of cool features that I appreciate, especially on a cheaper AEG like this. And while I did feel a little bit limited by the range, this gun held up to my expectations for a beginner gun. So was it corporate approved? I'd say so, but bear in mind what this gun is. I think I'd really prefer to see it offered closer to the $180 mark based on what you get. Realistically, where I see this gun fitting in is, it's that gun that you pick up as your first AEG. It's something you're gonna use for a year or two, but realistically, you're gonna move on to something a little more robust in the future. So Norwest Airsoft and I are now working in collaboration. Myself, Interlink, and all of our shareholders have some very cool stuff that we're bringing to the table soon. We're very excited to share that with you, so stay tuned. I'm Reach, stay corporate approved.
Thanks to Azimuth, Spartan Jets, Black Fox, Majesty, Surged AI, Stokes, Funguis, Tybor Ernest, William Bowen, Eastman, and Dan. All members of the C-suite on Patreon. The Interlink Corporation greatly values your contribution.